Hi, I'm Leo Brodie.
Hi, Leo.
It's really great to be here doing this. I'm really thrilled. So, my talk today is 3 ideas to give up. And this came from a person named Emma Curtis Hopkins. How many of you are familiar with Emma Curtis Hopkins? A couple people. All right. Well, this is cool because it's actually from this book, and this book was written in 1891. So this is old advice. Now, if you don't know Emma, what's interesting about that, my tradition, my faith community is religious science, or the Centers for Spiritual Living. I'm a practitioner in that denomination. But if you don't know, those 2 denominations, even though they were formed by different people independently, we really have pretty much exactly the same beliefs. And that's why, the musicians go back and forth from one to another. So I'm lucky enough to be able to experience a lot of unity services as well as services at my own church. But Unity was founded by Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, and they studied with Emma. And my church was founded by Ernest Holmes, and he studied with Emma. So we have, you guys and me, we all have the same grandparent, sort of. With Emma. Grandma Emma. So anyway, I'm going to talk about these 3 things, and I just realized I'm going to need my glasses. And I might as well get my water. Just to be prepared, like a Muscat. All right, so the first thing that we want to give up if we want to advance spiritually is what Emma calls self-will. And that means insisting that things be the way we are, or the way we want them to be. It has to be a certain way. And this is different than will, which of course is one of the 12 powers that Charles Fillmore wrote about. Will is good. Will is what we need to, he calls it focus, actually. It's what we need to make sure that we get done, so we're not just thinking in our heads and we're actually doing stuff in the world. And we live we're spiritual beings in a material world, so we have to do things in the material world. So will is important, but Emma's not talking about that. She's talking about self-will. You could call it willfulness, I guess. Now, in our culture, we really value, particularly the United States, I think, we really value the rugged individual. It's like we think that the person who does everything by themselves, the guy who doesn't want to do it by the rules, the detective who doesn't play by the rules, and those are our heroes, the person who does everything by himself. We revere that, and whereas in fact what we really want is communities where people do things together or in cooperation. There should be more cooperation than just the lone hero in the movies. But what we're really talking about is the spiritual aspect of this, which is being willful, wanting to do it my way instead of recognizing that God's will is present, that there is this thing to be attuned to, the higher will, and to be able to operate within that. And the trick is knowing the difference. How do I know the difference between what I want and what God might want? I really don't believe that God has a plan for everybody. This is my own opinion. God doesn't decide, oh, he should do that and she should do that, and that we should just be obedient puppets or something. That's not what God made us for. God gave us free will. And the reason why we have free will is so that we can have the will to do God's will. But it's our will that's deciding to do that. So I think that's what this is really about. Now, there's a lot of biblical references to this. I think the disciples asked Jesus how they should pray, and he gave them the template for what we call the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven. But one of the lines in there is, thy will be done. And when Jesus was he realized that he was going to die on the cross, he said, not my will, but thine be done. So he turned that over to what he called at least in English, what we call the Father, which he thought of that as the one unity, the one mind, the one spirit. And Emma writes often, I will, she writes the phrase, I will to will God's will. So that's setting your intention to be in alignment with God. And Charles Fillmore says this is not talking about, or when he talks about will and following the will of God, he says this is not being submissive. It's not, whatever, I just go with the flow, or anything like that. It's actually being willful, but being in alignment with higher truth. So he says it's raising my will to the highest spiritual degree. So I think it's kind of like, I think of it like, you're getting on that train, you're getting on that vibration, a higher vibration or something like that. And you can do that by meditation and prayer and spiritual practice. So Emma was a big believer that we have a divine, because we're divine beings and we're created in the image and likeness of God, that we have not only the ability but the duty to do things like heal the sick. In other words, we can command outcomes by claiming the word of truth. And so, but she says that we do that most successfully and most powerfully when we first submit really to the will of Spirit. So it's kind of a double thing. We submit to the will of Spirit, we align ourselves with that, we look up, we attend to what's true and good, and we know the highest truth. We know what love is, we know what truth is, we know what wisdom is, and we align ourselves with that, and then we become that, and then we will and we command the manifestations that we want to see in the world. That's very powerful. It's complex, but it's powerful. So the second thing is, I just want to make sure I stay on time here. The second thing that we want to give up is the idea that life is difficult. By the way, all three of these things are things I'm speaking for myself here, because these are all things I need to constantly remind myself. Life seems really difficult. It certainly seems like a struggle in a lot of ways. But what Emma is telling us here is that if we think of ourselves as having to do it all, and we think of ourselves as being separate from God, which is unfortunately the way we normally think. That's what our culture is that's what we're raised thinking, and we just believe we're separate from God. So we think we have to do it all ourselves, and it's going to be difficult, and we only value things in our culture that people work hard for. And she says, no, you don't have to do that. Make it easy, but you still have to do the work, you still have to show up. It just doesn't have to be a struggle. It's not saying that things will just magically happen. Seek God first, and all things are added. I think that's what that means. It's and added without effort. And I didn't intend to be all biblical here, but just this topic is actually referenced a lot in the Bible, in the works of Jesus, and Jesus talks about the lilies of the field. I was raised Catholic, so I know this stuff. And the lilies of the field, the parable of that is, he says, Jesus says, look, guys, you don't have to sweat where the next meal is coming from or what, it's just, God handles this. And just look at the lilies of the field. Do they worry about how they're going to be dressed? They just are adorned by nature of what they are, who they are. Of course, we actually have to put clothes on, so it's not great. It's not completely 100% accurate analogy. Right, Jesus? Yeah, but anyway. So this pattern shows up in me. This idea that I have to make life difficult. I really, really have done that. My wife can tell. My wife is here. She can confirm that. The way it showed up for me is that I have always been proud of the fact that I was a good problem solver. I love that. And so when I would apply for jobs and they'd interview me and say, I really, really love solving problems. And it's true. I have an analytical mind and I love looking at the problem, figuring out, okay, how can we solve that? What's the best way to do that? And stuff like that. And well, I guess it was really, I would find myself in situations where I'd do programming for my main job, computer programming, software engineering, and you can really get yourself down the rabbit hole if you just decide, oh, this is, I have to solve this. It's going to be hard, but I'm just going to do it. You can really tangle yourself up. At least I know I have. And there was one time I was actually at a spiritual retreat. This was when I was studying to be a practitioner about 3 years ago. And we were up in the mountains, and the website that I manage had a major malfunction. And I had to deal with it, and it was like crazy because we were up in the mountains and I didn't have good wireless. And I just, after I saw that whole thing, I went, why did that have to happen right now? And I went, oh, it just dawned on me. It's because I've always identified as a problem solver. So what good is a problem solver if he doesn't have problems to solve? And so I said, well, I don't want to be a problem solver that bad. And really, so it's like a change of thought, change the thought pattern there. Decide, okay, maybe I can contribute in some other way without having to have problems to solve or without making it hard. And I'll tell you the cool side of this, the flip side is, and I was really proud of this. This was just about 2 months ago, and I was I was starting a new software project. And I got about a week into it, and I suddenly realized that one of the several things that I was trying to accomplish was not going to work. Because of the other things I wanted to do as well, this one thing that I thought was really important, it wasn't going to work. And you know how the coyote gets off the cliff about 5 feet away from the edge, and he looks down and he goes, that's how I felt. It was like really devastating. And I think my normal reaction would have been to go, okay, I'm going to have to really work hard to solve this. But instead, luckily, I went, okay, I know, I used my prayer. I said, I know that there is one mind. That mind is God's mind. That mind is my mind. And I know that there's an answer to this problem that will come easily. And I just declared it, and I affirmed it, and I kept saying it until I believed it. And here's what happened. As soon as I actually believed that there really was an answer and that I would know what it was, my first thought was this sinking feeling. I felt, sinking feeling is the best way to put it. I felt like there was going to be an answer, and I would know what it was, and I wouldn't like it. I didn't know what the answer was going to be, but I felt like, I'm not going to like this because it's too easy. Or it's going to be disappointing in some way. It's not going to do everything that I want to do. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be on my guard. When this idea comes, I'm not going to just dismiss it and say, no, that's not good enough. I need to work hard and make this thing be the way I want it to be. So literally, I went to bed that night, got into bed, and all of a sudden I realized what I needed to do. And without going into technical details, it basically involved giving up one thing that I thought was important that I realized wasn't really important. And I went, oh, that's easy. So I was so happy that I didn't have to spend like 3 weeks redoing this whole thing. So that's, you can take what you will from that, but for me, it's the benefit of just relaxing for a second and knowing the higher truth. So the third thing that we want to give up is aiming or doing things specifically for recognition. Now, to get praise. And again, it's like the other ones. There's always the good side to this, and then there's a side where you cross a line and you're inflicting wounds on yourself, right? Because getting appreciation is fine. We all need love. Love, in fact, is what the world is made of. Our relationships with each other are very important. And to want to be appreciated is actually something we should kind of expect. It's a good thing. It's something, I guess I think of it as, if God loves everything unconditionally, then we can kind of expect to be loved. But we can't expect a certain person or a certain group of people necessarily to react a certain way. That's where it crosses the line. We can't, it's just not our job to expect that. And the lesson is, we don't need to be appreciated by other people. We need to know that we're loved by God, and we need to do our best. So this really came home for me. Now, I'm a musician as well as a programmer, and this is the area where I see this a lot, because I really just started doing this. I've always played the piano and written songs, but I never really had the courage to get up out of the chair and do it in front of the congregation until about 5 years ago. And one of the things that hung me up, and it hung me up even after I started doing it, was that I would start thinking that, oh God, I'm really just doing this so that people applaud me. Thank you. No, and I didn't like that, right? I'm doing this so, and I've always had that need, kind of as a kid. Like, I need, attention, but yet I'm shy, so it's like a real, it was attention, and I didn't, it was almost enough for me to not want to do this, to do the music, to think that the reason why I was doing it is just for my own ego. But luckily I had this other thought going on that was, well, okay, that may be true, but it's also true that you also want to raise the vibration of the service. You want to be of service. You want to uplift people and connect with people and let people connect with each other and connect with spirit. In fact, music can help us go in. So there's all these reasons why I was telling myself, okay, it isn't just about my ego. Get over it. So that helped. And that was like many years ago. Well, this year, but I still had that thing where I really did actually want people to appreciate it. I was like, I still wanted people to appreciate the music. I needed that. I hadn't healed myself completely of that, even though I was able to get up. So earlier this year, and I'm sorry if this is too long a story, but I wanted to do a second album. It's the one that's sitting out there. It was at the beginning of the year, and I was really discouraged. I didn't like the recordings that I had so far. And what really bugged me is that I knew that, I had to stop for a second, because I know, because I go to churches like this, and every time I come, it's such a satisfying feeling, because I get to play for you in real time. You're there, you hear it, you react, and I can feel that connection. Whether you clap or not, I don't really care, but I feel a connection, so it's satisfying to me. But when you do recorded music, there's nobody there, right? So you're kind of, the only satisfaction I was going to get was to know that people would be listening to it. The truth is, I love doing recorded music because for a lot of the technical reasons, and because you get to put lots of different tracks on and layer the voices and do anything you want with as many instruments as you want to use. And I have a home studio, so I can do whatever I want. But I was really discouraged because I wasn't happy with the music, and I thought, nobody's going to listen to this. People don't listen to music anymore. They're saturated with Spotify and YouTube and stuff like that. And so I started to tell myself it wasn't worth it. And I had this little equation. Well, people, maybe so many people will listen to it, and that isn't worth the time that I'm going to take to put into it. So I made it into an equation, like a value proposition, like a businessman saying, what's the return on investment in terms of people's appreciation? And it didn't seem like it was worth it. And so I was really frustrated. I was ready to give up the whole thing. But then I realized, no, wait a minute, I really do like doing this. Actually, I enjoy it. And I went to see a practitioner, and I came away with understanding that what they said just something that just switched my whole brain, which was, I'm really not doing this for appreciation of other people. I do want appreciation, but I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I love layering the tracks. I love adding the bass part and all these other things that I just love doing. And what I realized was I had been cheating myself. Because the reason why I didn't like the tracks was because I was doing a minimal job. I was just going, oh, well, okay, well, I have the bass part, so there's a bass part. And I wasn't really thinking about what's the coolest thing I could do here. I was just doing the minimum. because I was making it a value proposition. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but to me it was a revelation that just letting go of what people thought was gave me permission to go for it and not care. And I really then, from that point on, had a lot of fun doing the album. And I don't care if you buy it. That's almost true. That's almost true. And, it's like 99% true. I can be honest. Truth heals. Okay. So, in conclusion, and I hope it's a good time to be ending. Yes, perfect time. So you can see all three of these things, they seem kind of random, 3 different things, but she actually lists them in one paragraph in that book. And the reason why is because they're all variations of the same idea, which is, do we believe in God? Do we build our life around God and spirit? Do we trust that the love in the universe is all-encompassing? Do we trust that the wisdom of God is the sum total of all wisdom? Do we trust that? Or do we think that we're separate from that and that we have to do it all ourselves, that we have to struggle, and that the only way we can get any validation is from outside sources, from other people, instead of knowing that we're appreciated? We can see everything in life is giving us validation every single second of the day. That's a choice we make. So, thank you, Emma. Now let's thank you. Let's do a little prayer. And if I could have my musician come up and play, no, we won't do that. I thought about that, but I'm not going to do that. So just close your eyes if you're comfortable. Be aware of your breath for a moment. Be aware of the chair supporting you. And sink into gratitude, knowing that there is one life, there is one God, there is one power that is all of mind, all intelligence, all wisdom. That one mind is the idea of love, the basis of love, the pattern of all giving and all receiving is encoded in the mind of God. And all we really have to do is relax into that. Turn off the chatter of our mind. Turn off the thinking we have to do this, run here, do that, blah, blah, blah. And just settle in and trust Spirit. Knowing that God is there supporting us. Whatever we do, no matter what the difficulty is, when we're faced with a difficulty, we can choose to see it however we want to see it. We can choose to accept God's love in our life and know that that is the love, that is in a way the only love, and that the love that we can see from each other and the love that we give for each other is merely a flowing through. It's an outpicturing. It's an expression of that one love. The love is already there. The love is always present. We are never separate from that. And so holding that in our hearts, knowing that in our minds, I'm filled with gratitude. And I know that I can go out and face the struggles that life may present, knowing the truth of who I am and my own divinity, and so it is. Thank you.